More and more people in the country are using their brains when it comes to coronavirus restrictions, which is either very clever or very stupid, depending on how much BBC you watch. A national study in Scotland shows that 27 out of 32 Scottish local authorities have problems with child exploitation. Halloween is not banned, it's just not recommended, so stop being fear-mongered into giving everything up. This and more coming up. Thank you to those of you who have sent me links to stories. As for the rest of you, please remember to subscribe and hit that bell so that you don't miss any future uploads. And if you appreciate the work I do, please consider joining the channel Patreon for as little as just £3 a month, which will enable me to continue providing this content. Hello ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, innies, outies and in-betweeners. My name's Dan and welcome back to another PAP Reports. It's Monday, 26th of October 2020. A Metropolitan Police detention officer, Sergeant Paul Robinson, has been handed his P45 after a misconduct hearing which was held on the 15th of October. Robinson was found to have breached the standards of professional behaviour in relation to discreditable conduct after it was alleged that on the 6th of November 2019, Sergeant Robinson, whilst off duty in a pub, was overheard making racially offensive comments about members of the public during a conversation with another man. Having considered all of the evidence, the chair and panel at the hearing found that all matters were proven at gross misconduct level and Sergeant Robinson was shown the door. Commander Sue Williams of the Met Police's operations said, "There is no place for racism in the Metropolitan Police Service. We expect our standards to be upheld by all officers and staff, whether they are on or off duty. And with these matters proven, it is appropriate Sergeant Robinson has been dismissed." Commander Sue Williams. Newsflash, there is no place for discrimination of any kind. And it shouldn't matter if the victim's black or not. It's about time that people stopped making things about characteristics and started making it solely about the conduct of the offending person. Coronavirus. So serious that when people exploit loopholes in the legislation, the government just let it happen. Not that I'm suggesting that businesses are doing anything wrong in their bid to survive financially. After all, we are all adults and can make our own decisions and take our own risks, providing that we're respectful of other people. Some of London's restaurants have discovered a loophole in the Tier 2 coronavirus lockdown restrictions, which prohibits 6 people from different households from mixing. An exemption that the government included in the rules to allow freelancers to work over lunch is being exploited by high-end restaurants who are encouraging up to 30 people to dine together as long as the topic of discussion is business. Okay, and before those of you who feel that non-believers or those who don't think this pandemic is as bad as being made out, just take a moment to think about that. If you're dining to discuss business, then you can meet up to 30 people. But you can't meet a family member if you want to wish a child happy birthday or spend the final moments with someone's life with them. COVID is so bad. Caprice Holdings, run by multi-millionaire Richard Caring, which owns a string of restaurants, sent an email to people on their email list explaining how they can still book at the restaurants without breaking the regulations. "We wish to make it clear," he said, "when the topic is business, you can still meet over a fabulous working lunch or dinner without the restriction of a single household rule, i.e. mixed households are permitted up to 6 guests. We can host up to 30 people within our private dining spaces for business meetings." The Cinnamon Club, popular with politicians and lobbyists due to its location near the Palace of Westminster, said it's become clear that if you are coming down to our restaurant for business purposes, you can meet over lunch or dinner without the single household restriction, and this is permitted for up to 6 guests. Following the email, other chains started to do the same. D&D London, which owns Quaglino's, the Bluebird Cafe and others, said, "We are pleased to confirm that you can still have business meetings over lunch and dinner, provided that the primary purpose of your booking is business. We are delighted to welcome you as usual." Jeremy King, co-owner of Corbyn & King, which owns the Delaney on the Strand and the Wolseley in Piccadilly, emailed their clients to tell them, while social occasions need to be from a single household, it has been determined that business meetings are acceptable. Restaurants in the Shard and Heron Towers are accepting big bookings for business lunches too. The restaurants are relying on Exemption 3 in the Health Protection Coronavirus Local COVID-19 Alert Level Medium Regulations 2020 Act, which states exception 3 is that the gathering is reasonably necessary, A, for work purposes, or for the provision of voluntary or charitable services. With emails sent and understood, many of London's famous restaurants, including the Ivy, were said to be doing a roaring trade on Friday lunchtime. At the Sexy Fish restaurant on Berkeley Square in Mayfair, all the tables were occupied, forcing walk-ins to eat at the bar. Downing Street said most cross-household work meals were not permitted and that they should only happen if there was no other option. But a spokesman indicated that the government was unlikely to take any action against restaurants promoting business lunches. We obviously encourage people to use alternatives for work meetings where possible, like COVID-secure workplaces or through other means, virtually or on the phone. The Number 10 spokesman said, "We have set out this week why the exemption was introduced in order to allow freelancers and others who don't have access to COVID-secure workplace to use. But we encourage everyone to act responsibly." And you know what? I think this is okay. Now, I understand some people are afraid and worried, but it's already proven that by the statistics that locking people down doesn't work. Lockdowns are fine for regrouping if it looks like hospitals need to get themselves together, for example, but destroying people's livelihoods and businesses is not a way to fight any kind of virus that's not turning people into zombies. Being respectful to others if you're out, making informed decisions on your own safety and for those who are afraid of or worried should simply do the same for themselves. Wear your face covering, wash your hands more than normal, wash all your food product packages under the tap when you get them home from shopping. That's entirely up to you and people should respect your choices. But those people can still keep themselves safe, even if others choose to live their lives. Now, I do believe in COVID. I don't believe it's anywhere near as bad as being made out. And I don't believe the restrictions outweigh the damage that they're causing. But people are social creatures. Even those who think they're doing a good thing by sitting at home on their own with no social contact for 9 months are going to end up destroyed. So providing everyone respects each other's choices and lets everyone just get on with their lives, then I don't see how we can't just simply learn to live with this. Staff at Common Bar on Edge Street say Greater Manchester Police visited on Friday afternoon and told them that their pizza slices don't fit the substantial food brief, but claims they could not tell them what substantial food meant. Surprise, surprise, policing things they haven't got a clue about. Under the government's Tier 3 lockdown rules, alcohol may only be served alongside a substantial meal, which it defines as like a lunchtime or evening meal or main course. Although depending on who you are, a substantial meal could vary vastly. Common boss Johnny Hayes said about the visit, "It's just a bit of a joke. I don't want to say anything bad about the officers because they had obviously been sent round to check everyone was serving food and adhering to the guidelines. But they don't have any information about what actually constitutes a substantial meal. They're just winging it." After the story was reported, it appears that Greater Manchester Police had a slight change of heart. What a difference numbers can make. No doubt lots of calls, lots of emails and plenty of bad publicity did the trick. In a tweet from the Common, they said the head of Greater Manchester Police licensing got on the blower to let us know that Slicegate has been revisited and our Nell's pizza slices, cut from 22-inch pizzas, are now officially deemed substantial. Greater Manchester Police said in a comment, "We are currently still awaiting clearer guidance to be given around what constitutes a substantial meal in line with the new restrictions. Given we have already entered Tier 3 restrictions, it is our duty to ensure that the rules are being followed and therefore officers must assess situations on a case-by-case basis. Greater Manchester Police remain consistent with the approach we have taken throughout the pandemic." What a joke. To engage with businesses in order to ensure compliance with the COVID-19 legislation. After further consideration, we are now satisfied that until further guidance is given, we believe their service is compliant with the rules. Chief Constable Ian Hopkins said, while police will be joining local licensing officers on visits to premises to check they are following the rules, they should not be entering a debate over the rules. In other words, do as we say, we will not listen to reason. This whole incident happened after earlier in the week Ian Hopkins was asked a question about this very situation. Asked if he imagined he'd be policing what does or does not constitute a substantial meal, Mr. Hopkins laughed and said, "We won't." Proving, yet again, that the left hand has no idea what the right hand is doing. And this is the police. Very, very worrying. Hopkins said that while Greater Manchester Police will be carrying out around 500 licensing visits to premises across the region, these are local authority led and police are only there to offer support. Offer support for what? I think they mean intimidation, although I personally would much rather the police be on the street, with their presence being an intimidation to deter crimes. But, you know, what do I know? Huge warning now as black COVID marshals are doing the rounds, trying to gain entry to people's homes. Now, it's important to remember that COVID marshals have zero powers, none, nada, zilch. So they cannot threaten you or get you to do anything, whether that's talk to them or let them into your home. If they place a hand on you, they're assaulting you. And even though you might not be hurt, you should always complain about assault to ensure that these jackbooted collaborators don't start to think that they can get away with things. COVID marshals can't even issue fines, so you've nothing to be worried about if they turn up at your door. And this goes for medical professionals that stop you or turn up at your door too. The Chartered Trading Standards Institute said that fraudsters are shifting their tactics as rules and regulations are changing. Catherine Hart, the Chartered Trading Standards Institute lead officer for doorstep crime, said constant vigilance is needed, adding that this type of scam appears in many forms. And I have also received information about individuals pretending to offer flu vaccinations on the door, a concerning development as we enter flu season. I'm particularly concerned that elderly and vulnerable individuals may be at risk to this scam. Catherine Hart urged the public to spread this information to prevent unscrupulous individuals from ruining the lives of those already struggling during this challenging time. So remember, folks, live within the law, make the most of your rights and utilise them every chance you get. But most importantly, stay safe. A national study in Scotland by the Scottish Children's Reporter Administration and the charity Bernardo Scotland has shown that children are being exploited in all parts of Scotland, as in on the islands, rural communities and urban areas, with cases identified in all but 5 of Scotland's local authorities. That's 27 out of 32 Scottish council areas. The report, which is the first national study of child sexual exploitation in Scotland, defines the crime as a form of child sexual abuse in which a person or people of any age takes advantage of a power imbalance to force or entice a child into engaging in sexual activity in return for something received by the child and or those perpetrating or facilitating the abuse. The child is anyone up to the age of 18. One of the findings from the study was that 80% of boys the research team said were likely to have been victims of sexual exploitation had not been identified as such in official reports. For girls, it was just 25%. Although even just 25% is far too many in my opinion. The report calls for further efforts to increase communities and agencies' awareness of the problem. The report suggested that boys were more likely to have been exposed to violence and display sexually harmful behaviour than girls. Girls were more likely to be reported to have a much older boyfriend or girlfriend. Girls are more likely to be victims of sexual abuse. Girls were more likely to have attempted suicide. Girls were more likely to have self-harmed. Girls were more likely to be sexually active. Alistair Hogg, Head of Practice and Policy at Scottish Children's Reporter Administration, said, child sexual exploitation is a particularly hidden form of sexual abuse and crime. Victims may not be aware that they are being sexually exploited, such as the coercive nature of perpetrators and the control they exert over their victims. It is very rare for a child to disclose that they are a victim. We hope this report will lead to a sustained focus on child sexual exploitation in Scotland, and that by working together with all our partners, we can protect the most vulnerable children and young people in our communities. But why has it taken so long for a report of this type to be done is my question. We know these things are occurring and at an increased rate, so I'm just as concerned as to why these things are taking so long before someone realises it's a good idea to do an investigation. Now, is anybody in Wales looking for a new job? How would you like to police the police? Well, North Wales Police and Crime Commissioner is looking for custody watchdogs. Now, you won't get paid as it's voluntary, but you will get the chance to offer recommendations to improve, and you can also keep an eye on the cretinous pigs who feel it's okay to do some of the things that they do. Mr Jones wants to appoint up to 9 people to join the existing team responsible for visiting custody facilities near Wrexham. Their job will be to safeguard the welfare of people detained by the police and ensure their rights are upheld. Successful candidates will be expected to undertake at least 10 unannounced visits a year, along with and attending training courses, meetings and conferences. Mr Jones said, "We have a responsibility to ensure that the police are doing things correctly and abiding by the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. It is imperative, therefore, that we have a way of monitoring what goes on in a police custody area. We are looking for people with good communication skills who can demonstrate that they have independence and an impartial view, while at the same time maintaining confidentiality. This is a very important and interesting role, and I hope that we will attract a lot of interest from suitable candidates from all kinds of backgrounds. I'm particularly keen to attract Welsh speakers, younger people and members of the black and ethnic minority communities." Bethany Wrench, the coordinator for the Carnarvon Custody Suite, which serves Gwynedd and Anglesey, said, "Operating in pairs, we approach a custody area unannounced and we have to be given immediate access. Accompanied by a sergeant or a civilian detention officer, we speak to detainees to check the condition of the cells, to make sure that they are clean and that everything is in working order. When vulnerable people are held in custody, we have to ensure that their needs are met, as well as those of other detainees. We are not allowed to know the names of people in detention or what they are in for, which allows us to retain our objectivity. We then produce a written report at the end of each visit, which is signed by the custody sergeant, and anything we believe needs rectifying is put right straight away or can be raised in the quarterly meetings, which are held between visitors, the Police and Crime Commissioner and senior police officers. Executive Officer somebody Jones, who has responsibility for overseeing the visiting scheme within the PCC's office, said, "This is one of the Commissioner's statutory duties, and we are looking to recruit people over the age of 18 who either live or work in the North Wales police area. They should also be independent of the criminal justice in that they do not work for the police or probation service and do not serve as a magistrate. The overall objective is to ensure that people held in custody are detained safely and properly, and that their rights and welfare are being visited to." But doesn't it worry you that the police actually need this kind of thing? Visitors are free to arrange their own visiting times, which can be any time from early in the morning to late at night, any day of the week. Magistrates and serving or former police officers and special constables are not allowed to become custody visitors. To avoid possible conflict of interest, others may be excluded if they have direct involvement in the criminal justice system, such as solicitors or probation officers. Those who are interested in applying to become a custody visitor in North Wales should contact the Commissioner's office, either by ringing 01492 805 486 or via email at opcc@nthwales.pnn.police.uk. Police forces across the country are reminding people that they shouldn't be doing anything this Halloween by explaining how trick-or-treating is not recommended. Cheshire Police, for example, have told locals to find other ways to celebrate so they can stick to the rules. Traditional activities like trick-or-treating are being outlawed and are not recommended this year by police, while Halloween parties with friends can't happen either because it puts people at risk of further spreading COVID. Superintendent Joe Marshal Bell said, "It has been a tough year for many and we recognise that seasonal Superintendent Joe Marshal Bell said it has been a tough year for many and we recognise that seasonal festivities are really important for mental health and well-being. We really want you to have fun this Halloween and bonfire night, but to do so safely within the law and bear in mind the current situation with the pandemic. Antisocial behaviour and criminal damage can have a significant impact on the local community and can have a long-lasting effect on victims. Now more than ever, we need to pull together to help slow the spread of the virus while celebrating Halloween a little differently. I'm confident the majority of residents will stick to the rules and do all they can to celebrate Halloween safely. But there will be an increased officer presence across the county to provide reassurance and for anyone who may have any concerns over the Halloween and bonfire period. Our approach will continue to be engage, explain and encourage, and only as a last resort, enforce. In Cheshire West, residents cannot socialise with anybody from outside their household in any indoor setting. The new legislation is in addition to other existing measures that are already in place, including the use of face coverings and the rule of six. Anyone who breaches the new legislation could face a £200 fine. Police are said to be working with partners, including Cheshire Fire and Rescue Service and the local authorities in the run-up to Halloween and Bonfire Night to help keep the number of incidents as low as possible. Now, I think it's important to say that just because someone says something's not recommended doesn't mean it's unlawful. The rules say not to mix in groups of more than 6 indoors. Some places outdoors. However, normally only one person answers the door, so provided there's no more than 5 of you knocking, no problem. Step away from the door when you've knocked. Create that social distance. No problem. Wear a mask. It's Halloween, so I'll be surprised if you weren't. And as face coverings can literally be anything, then you're covered there too. No problem. Remember that any sweets you're given from someone could have come from a bag where others' hands have been. So maybe using some common sense and having some hand sanitizer would be appropriate too. There are ways around this tyranny, but it will take people using their heads and being brave enough to stand against it. So don't put yourself at any unnecessary risk. Respect other people's choices and have some fun. That's my suggestion anyway, especially as not doing Halloween is simply not recommended rather than banned completely. Well, not only is the Welsh Government restricting access to many items that people feel are essential, for which they have been lambasted online over, the police are now coming under fire for posting tweets of a spot check on a train passenger. The post made by British Transport Police North Wales showed an image accompanied with the text, "We are checking if your journey is essential. Please stay at home." The 2 constables in the image were branded a disgrace and shameful after they were seen well within a safe distance from the passenger they were speaking to. Getting ripped on social media, one user said, "As a retired police officer, I would feel very uneasy at the way you are dealing with this. Moreover, your manner in these tweets is very confrontational and sounds very political. You will lose the public on this." Another wrote, "No sane person wants to be treated like this. The way the police are behaving is a disgrace." British Transport Police North Wales deleted the post following the hammering and published a series of tweets cop-splaining the photo. They said, "Right folks, the last tweet generated a fair amount of comment, so let's put a few things straight. Wales is on lockdown. You should not be out without a reasonable excuse. It is our job to enforce the current regulations. We did this throughout the previous lockdown too. This means asking people why they are travelling. Tonight, everyone we have spoken to has been travelling legitimately. The lockdown is there to stop the spread of the virus. We all need to do our bit. Only those who think the rules don't apply to them and selfishly break them need to be worried about being spoken to by us. We want this virus to go away as much as everyone else. We all need to do our bit to achieve that." But the problem I see is that the word excuse makes it appear that you have done something wrong already. An essential journey is going to be different for all people and is, like most things during these restrictions in Wales and across England, subjective. And we're simply allowing people who are not in our shoes to decide whether our journeys are essential or not. The second thing is the complete lack of care for the guidance from those supposed to be enforcing it. Crowding around somebody on a train, an enclosed train, is not being safe for yourself or the public. And you know, your own lack of care about the restrictions is what's causing people to call you out over it. Another problem I have is that this is the beginning. The winter is coming up on its normal seasonal flu. The governments are going to be using this against us so they can lock us down again and blame us for it. That's what seems to be the plan of choice recently. Blame the public, make them feel guilty, make them feel bad for people getting ill and dying. That will get them to do what we say. Well, guess what, folks? It's not your fault. Whether you wear a mask or not, it's not your fault. Whether you get on a train for a non-essential journey or not, it's still not your fault. The fault for COVID rests squarely on the government's shoulders and not yours. The deaths that have occurred and the deaths that will occur due to the lockdown rest squarely on the government's shoulders and not yours. The sooner people realise this and stop bending over to this tyrannical state being imposed on us, the better. As I've said many times, don't put yourself at unnecessary risk and respect other people's choices. Very simple to do. Big thank you to channel supporters, one of them, especially the channel Patreon supporters. Your support is truly appreciated and helps massively. And that's all I have for you today, thankfully. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, as I know many of you will. And until next time, stay safe, look after each other, film the police and other officials.
Good night, all.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like the content and you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so. In the description of every video, there are some links to ways that you're able to help support the channel so I can continue putting out content. If you're unable to help us in that way, hit that subscribe button up the top there. If you haven't already, become a subscriber. That is support enough. Share the videos, comment, like, it all helps. If you're looking for something else to watch, up top there is my latest video. Down the bottom there is a video that YouTube recommends for you.